Hello, everyone, and welcome to Solar Sidekicks. Today, we are recording episode 23, and I am so happy that you have decided to join us on this podcast. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional landowners of where we're recording this today, and that's the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. And I pay my respects to all elders, past, present, and emerging. All right, episode 23. Want to have a shout out to last week's episode. We had Jack Long come in for episode 22. Heartfelt story, Jack. Thanks very much. The whole industry's behind you. You're a bit of a legend in this industry. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn by saying that, and really appreciate everything you have done for the industry, especially on the socials and all the networking and all that sort of stuff. It was great to have you in, mate. It was really nice to be able to spend some time with you and have a chat and go through the things that we went through. And good to hear all the great stuff you're doing at iStore. So thanks again for that there, Jack. All right. Well, we have another guest in the studio today. So our guest coming in made the trip to Carrum. Thanks very much, Caz Saunders. Welcome to Carrum.
Thanks a lot, Pat. Great to be here.
No worries. I'm really happy that you have made the journey. We've got an early morning start today. You got the sun sort of just in your eyes a little bit. I think it's going to move. But it's not a bad morning. It's been quite windy in Melbourne the last couple of days, weeks even, I think. Anyway, we're here in the nice warm sunshine of the studio. Really happy for you to make the journey. Did you get any traffic this morning, or was it all right?
No, it was pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
I rolled down from Springvale, from the training centre at Springvale.
Yep.
And,
You don't sleep there, do you?
No. It's nearby. But no, we did
Nearby.
kick off very early this morning with the course there. So kicked off there and then rolled down here.
Good stuff. So, well, first of all, you're not from Melbourne, are you?
No,
you're not.
From Adelaide,
Yeah.
born and bred on York Peninsula, a couple of hours out of Adelaide on a farm.
Yep.
And been living in Adelaide, for pretty much all of my adult life. A little bit of a stint overseas, and then back in Adelaide, and kicked off actually not in the training space or in the solar space, but as a physio. So
I want to go through some of that. You got a really interesting story, I reckon. I'm gonna really enjoy this episode. You got a really interesting career, some of the stuff you've done. So I want to go into some of that. Now I wouldn't know you don't live in Adelaide, because I tend to see you, I don't know, every couple of weeks, every few weeks, whatever it is. And you're in Melbourne all the time. So as far as I'm concerned, you may as well just live in Melbourne.
Yes. Well, we do actually spend probably 2 weeks of every month here in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And we also head up to Brisbane regularly as well. We have a training centre up in Brisbane. We also have one up in Darwin as well. So we're flying around a lot and running courses and holding meetings and catching up with people like your good self. And generally spreading ourselves around as we run the business and try and keep developing and growing and bringing more things to the market that we can. Yeah,
you certainly are doing that at the moment. There's a lot happening. In solar space, and especially in the training space. There'd be so much to unpack. We could probably sit here all day just talking about all the stuff that's been happening, and it's all of it's really cool. So, all right. So, where should we start? All right, let's start with the question: are you a solar sidekick or are you a solar superhero?
Well, I thought about this, and I actually think you need to be a superhero to run an RTO. So I'll say just on that basis, a superhero, I think.
Beautiful. I really liked your answer, because you had your own sidekick mentioned in there.
Yes, and my sidekick is Steve Kostoff, who's obviously the CEO of Solar Training Centre, and for those of you who don't know, he's also my husband, so I get to call him a sidekick.
We had him in here on episode 6. That was a really fun chat with Steve. I think I made a comment in the next episode. Oh, you're much more interesting than I thought you were, Steve. And then he sent me a message going, "Oh, you're a smarty. What are you saying all that?" So yeah, it was really good. I was intrigued all the stuff you guys have done at Solar Training Centre and are doing. I was blown away by how much you've all engaged in the industry and how much you've taken it all on and really leading the way in training people, training these professionals to do the best job that they can. So it's clearly something that you're trying to do well. You're not just trying to get through as many people as possible. You want to actually provide some quality training.
That's correct. It's very much not a tick and flick, process. We try and put as much as we can into every course that we run. We do run face-to-face, which is the most difficult and most challenging way to run a course. Obviously, you can create an online course and just have people engage if and when they wish to, but we just have decided against that, given that we feel that people really want and need a lot of direction and personal contact when they're undertaking a training course, and we find that people get a lot more out of a course if it is face to face. It is an intensive week of training that we run, both in our solar grid PV courses, our battery storage courses, and our off-grid courses as well. It is a big week for people to take out of their business to attend and run, but we do find that intensive week of training, plus supported by online, learning as well. It really allows people to disengage from their work for that week and really concentrate on what they're doing, and learning from their peers as well as learning from the trainer. So we try and pack as much as we can into that training week. Yeah,
most definitely. I've seen that firsthand, how you all do that, and it is pretty jam packed in. You want to give the students as much value for their money as you can. Yeah. All right. Okay. Let's go. Let's take a few steps back into your professional life. And you haven't always been in solar, have you?
No, I haven't always been in solar.
Let's go back to the start. What did you do out of high school? What were you doing?
High school. I went to high school in Adelaide as a boarder. So we had a farm on York Peninsula, sheep and wheat, and so I went to boarding school from year 8.
Yeah. Was that one of the ones like you got sent off because you were the naughty girl?
No. I got sent off because I actually got a scholarship.
Scholarship. Okay.
No, my parents had grown up in Adelaide themselves, or my dad's family he had family on York Peninsula. So there wasn't the schooling on York Peninsula wasn't the best, and I think if I'd gone to Middleton High, I would have ended up working in a bank or married to a farmer.
Fair enough.
Both of which are very, very noble things to do.
Yeah, that's fine.
There was
not the way it's panned out though, is it?
No. So there's a little.
What's a student? I want to know. What's a student were you at school? Were you the one? Were you sort of straight A's? Were you middle of the road?
Straight A's, diligent.
Yeah.
I was a straight A student.
So you weren't one of those people like me that got reports saying, Pat does not concentrate and could do much better if he only applied himself and didn't get distracted.
I was acutely aware of the fact that even though I was only on scholarship actually for a couple of years of the schooling, but I was acutely aware of the work that my parents put in.
Yeah, sure.
And the sacrifices they were making to send 3 of us, to private school in Adelaide. Yeah. So I was pretty diligent, and I liked learning. I was relatively good at it.
Yep.
Not as great in maths, but relatively good in it, and I liked it. So I found it was I could achieve in high school.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good to hear. So where'd you go? What sort of did you go to uni?
Yes, definitely went to. At the time, Institute of Technology, which was the course that was running a physio course, which is what I went into. Most of my family has been in the medical field, pharmacy.
In the family, doctors. It's medical in the family, is it?
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Yep, nursing, GP, chemist and so forth. So I went into physio, 3.5 years there, and graduated as a physio, and then worked in public hospitals, to start with. Yep. And then did a big stint in Whyalla, which is about 4 hours out of Adelaide in a steel town.
Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, I know there's people living there, but it's pretty reasonably remote, isn't it? As far as there's more remote places on the coast. Yeah, so anything on South Australia on the coast is is not too bad. But it services a lot of remote areas. Yeah, as well. Right. Yeah.
But I was kind of got more into workers' comp rehab side of things, and that's what I was doing there, heading out to BHP every day and watching them make steel and assessing workers, for injuries.
I was going to say, any injuries from the steel workers?
Not for me, but yes, from many guys and girls there, doing very physical work in some quite dirty, cramped, and challenging sort of environments. So, shoveling coal and climbing lots of ladders and operating cranes and things. So that was a very well run plant, and it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was a hazardous plant at all, but there was obviously a challenging, challenging work there. So so I spent a good year there. Came back to Adelaide for a few months, and then headed off to the US and did a master's degree at University of Wisconsin in vocational rehabilitation. So,
okay, so you did that in the US?
Yeah, in the US.
I did not know this.
Yeah.
You didn't put that in the notes?
No, I didn't. No, I was there for
thinking
about...
I missed my research here.
No, I didn't tell you that. I need to keep some gems for the podcast.
What's Wisconsin like?
Wisconsin, interesting. A lot of lakes, very different. Coming from at that time, I'd been in Whyalla for a year, which is flat and red and no water, and going to Wisconsin, which was flat and just look everywhere and there's a lake, humid in the summer and deep snow in the winter. So that was
in Wisconsin,
north. So
inland though.
No, well, yes,
on the lakes,
on the lakes, on the Great Lakes.
So it gets freezing cold there.
Yeah, just below the Canadian border, around Chicago, that type of area there. So
hard winters there.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, rug up, and it was right in that era of Crocodile Dundee that hit and every American would say to me, "It's been my lifelong dream to go to Australia." And I think, you're 18. How long have you had a lifelong dream? And but I also did have a dry bone, so I looked the part as well. So,
did you? Yeah. Did they ever get you to say the line, say shrimp on the bar?
No, they just no. But I did get some very odd questions.
That's not a knife.
No, they didn't. I don't think that had really hit the lexicon there.
Okay, fair enough.
That well, but I did get asked, I told you speak English very well. Where did you learn it?
I've heard other people in America say that.
Things like that, and so.
Oh, cool. All right, well, that's good. And then, so now, well, we're not back to now yet, but you've sort of, what got you out of that health field? Well,
I was working, again, back in Australia in sort of workers' comp rehab, but vocational rehabilitation, so jobs and abilities in jobs or inabilities in jobs, and trying to match people to the right job, whether it was a physical disability or something they've been living with for their life, etc. There's a field of physio in occupational health.
Like an occupational therapist type of...
well, it's not so much... No, it's more about the occupations of the people. So worker health and rehabilitation.
Okay,
basically.
sure. Oh, yeah.
But working in private practice, I worked at Clipsal as an external consultant.
Did you?
Clipsal's
big in Adelaide.
For about 25 years.
Oh, did you?
As an on-site physio, so people would be making the switches and all the other kinds of things Clipsal make, and if they had injuries or difficulties, they'd come over to the health centre and we'd treat them and try to get them back on their feet.
Right.
And particularly involved in that kind of role, we did a lot of training. So we did manual handling training, injury prevention training, kind of analysing jobs, breaking them down into their pieces, and then trying to work out this person would be able to do this part of the job, but potentially not that part of the job, and then work out graded ways of getting.
Do you reckon that's changed? Has that changed much in the last, I don't know, like 20, 30 years, whatever? Like, as in, like, people getting back to, it's more encouraged now for people to come back to work and be at least do something rather than be back resting. That's I mean, I'm not in that field, but that's what it feels like.
Well, when I started in the field, it was still an adversarial workers' comp system, but the way that the law was set up, where you had to prove you were injured in order to get your entitlements. So it was whereas in the late 80s, early 90s, the legislation started changing to be a no-fault system. So you didn't, if you're injured and a doctor said you're injured, you didn't have to go and prove it right at the beginning of that process. So there were automatic supports put in place to return to work. So early return to work is obviously seen around the world as the most important factor in the success of somebody coming back to work. And education of employers was a really big part of that. So to say that somebody can actually still contribute to the running of the the work and so forth, and it's just working out how you can do that. So it's very much supported, as opposed to sitting at home and just theoretically recovering and getting a payout. And
was it was this more of an American thing where the insurance companies would hire private detectives and take probably back then it may not have been videos, but take photos of you if you've got a back injury, taking your groceries in from the car.
There still is a bit of that for in some circumstances right now, but that's the thing. It wasn't. That kind of thing is set up when it is an adversarial, system. It's certainly moved away from that kind of thing now, and I think they kind of reserve that for people that they really think are not playing the game correctly. But
So do you enjoy the health side of things?
Yeah, I did. I really enjoyed it. But I was getting more and more out of treating patients, putting it that way, and into assisting. Rehabilitation and training. I did a lot of training in the health sector, new staff entry, particularly manual handling training for nurses and other staff, how to get patients out of bed, how to turn them over in bed. We did a lot of work with people who were grossly obese who'd come into hospital and would not be able to even turn over in bed, so we've got to work out how to do that. So there's a lot of problem solving. A
lot of challenges there.
And a good teamwork approach as well. So, but alongside that, we do training for other organisations outside major hospitals and things. But then I met Steve, and he was involved in the training sector as well.
Yeah, because I'm trying to join the dots between where you were to Solar. I'm like, it's still. I mean, I've got a vague idea. Yeah. Trying to work this out. This seems like a bit of a zigzag path where you've got to where you are now.
It's a unique path, perhaps. So Steve and I, got together, and he was in that green environmental space. He had been training in other parts of his life, running restaurants and so forth. And then back in the 2000s, when environmental literacy was fairly low around the place, and we just started talking about changing from changing globes because of energy efficiency, or how to retrofit your house to make sure that to reduce energy bills and so forth. There was a lot going on in that space about trying to bring up people's understanding of those things, and because I had a training background, and I had a Cert 4 and TAE, and Steve was
all coming together
in that green space. So and there were opportunities that came up. We you might remember the old days of the Green Loans program, which was that national program. We got involved in that because of Steve's connections in the environmental space, and I had the training background, so we kind of came together on that, delivered the training under that program, and then that morphed into a certificate 4 in home sustainability assessment, which we trained, and also we got involved in training in Victoria back in 2009, I'm going to say.
I reckon it was 9 from memory from Steve's podcast.
Yeah, 2009. In the Victorian, back then it was called the VEET scheme, the Victorian Energy Efficiency scheme. Now it's called the VEU scheme, Victorian Energy Upgrades scheme, and there's a qualification course in retrofitting homes for energy and water efficiency. We got involved in training that, and that truly was training the installers, those installers that come around and change the light globes and put in shower heads and so forth. There was a specific mandatory training program they needed to do, so we got involved in that. And I kind of morphed more into that, the admin side of things, so quality training, compliance, because the RTO world is heavily.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh, because I know, like, I've had experience with this with you as well, and I mean, I haven't gone through anywhere near what you go through with the compliance side of things. You've got to tick so many boxes, and you've just got to make sure everything's right and.
Yeah, and you've got to have all the documents that you need to have to support what you're doing, the recording of them, the storage of them, making sure that, prior to enrolment, people have got all of the information that they're required to have. It's fair, clear and transparent. And then making it actually work. Getting the people in and actually getting them trained and getting their certificates and educating the employers about what their staff need to do, around those things. So so that's kind of how I morphed into, and I was still working as a physio in the initial stages of us running the RTO.
Yeah, right. Just a question without notice here, right? A lot of that stuff you're talking about with the compliance and RTOs, that's all very labour intensive, right?
Very
that takes a lot. What do you reckon? What do you reckon now or into the future? What role do you think AI might have to play in that? Do you think that AI's got a role with that sort of stuff? Because for me, it seems like people like yourself are spending so much time on doing that, and I don't know, do you think it provides, is that the best use of your time? Like, you're doing it, right? And because you can do it and you're good at it, but it's pretty, like, a lot of it's pretty boring and pretty you're just going through all of these things to make sure they line up.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think AI, I think, has a very big role, and it already has a role in writing of course materials.
Yep.
Because you can get, I must admit, I haven't done it myself, but I know it is done, and I have seen it done. Of getting that basic draft going on a topic, let's say. But then you're always going to have a subject matter expert come over that and go, and so like, computer's wrong on that, and we've got to build things out. When it comes to things like writing up, let's say, the template for an enrolment form, that gets very specific because you have to list unit codes, you have to list study pathways, and I haven't tested it out yet to see whether AI can pick up the nuances in that. But I think in terms of the preparation of drafts, things like policies, certainly, absolutely. But there are a lot of policy templates out there anyway. Once you have policies set, it's a matter of just reviewing them, and you might need to tweak them according to a legislation change or something like that. So, but I think these days, certainly in setting up policies, the mountain of policies that we need to have written, I think it has a big thing to play there. But it's certainly the other thing with AI is, producing visuals. And you've probably seen some of the visuals that have been produced on solar systems on houses where, you can say, well, that's not compliant, thanks AI. Right. But checking over that kind of stuff. So they can produce it, but, obviously you've got to have that input.
I agree. I think that's, I think it's got a really big role to play in a lot of parts of our lives. But it can't just be just AI. It's because you always need those people to coming in, the SMEs to come in and make sure that it's right, because there's mistakes, the computer glitches, the computer may not exactly know what you're talking about 100%. Yeah,
if you think about, let's say, just taking AS5139, the battery storage standard, you could have some AI write something about that, but it's those nuances of, it's about the interpretation of the standard. It's not just about what the standard says. So, and you need, CEC had to put out a document on how to interpret the standard. It may be a leap for AI to be able to do things at that level at this point. Who knows what will happen in the future, of course. Robots will be running our lives, in my lifetime. So
maybe. Sorry, I'll cut you off with that. I just wanted to throw that question in because I think it's becoming more and more part of our lives, and people are, I don't know, some people are a little bit scared by it, others are embracing it, and I don't know. For me, I think it's going to be a combination. Which is
I agree.
I've actually the new iPhone apparently is coming out in the next few weeks. Apparently, that's just stacked with AI. So we're gonna, because I think you're an iPhone user. Yes. It's going to all. Anyway, we'll see what happens. It's all going to change. So
well, what that does also, I think, though, is that if you have skills in interpreting, modifying, proofing, applying your knowledge to written or visual media, that's going to be a really big opportunity for people. Because you can see what will happen if AI takes off and there's more and more AI. The kinds of people that will be needed to help monitor and modify, etc., will, I think, increase. So you don't want those skills to drop off. You want to be expanding those skills.
For sure. Interesting stuff. Well, sorry, I cut you off with your journey. So Where were you? So you just come back to you're speaking about how you got involved with the VEECs and the VEUs,
VEU scheme, etc. And then originally when we were doing Green Lines, we were running it was non-accredited training, meaning it's not a qualification outcome. But we applied to become a RTO back in the good old days when it was a little bit easier, and that was when it was a state regulator. So we applied to South Australia, to have that done. But then it was all transferred over to the national regulator, ASQA. I think it was about 2014, something like that.
Yep.
And we did a lot of training of qualifications in like home energy assessment, business sustainability assessment. We ran carbon management courses, Cert 3 and Cert 4 in carbon management, with carbon footprinting, writing carbon management plans. It was all through that period of where that energy literacy and carbon literacy and was sort of taking off in the 2000s and 2010s, and then we had a change of government, and you weren't allowed to say sustainability anymore. You had everything was talked about. You need to talk about energy efficiency. It was fair enough, but it took the greenness out of it, and it was all about dollars.
Yeah,
and that was the focus. And the support for those kind of qualifications dropped off, and so we decided we needed to pivot and grow the business in another direction, and solar was it. So that's how we got into solar.
There we go. Well, I'm going to stick with my analogy there, a bit of a zigzag approach for you. It was you sort of where you are now. I mean, if you'd have you wind back the clock, however long back when you were, in high school, look at where you are now.
I know.
You'd probably
no way would you. Oh, well, interestingly though, when I was interesting to me, isn't possibly not to anybody else, but when I was in primary school, I was always going to be a teacher. But I think that's because I knew what teachers did, and I knew what farmers did, and I knew what doctors did and what nurses did. And out of all of them, I thought, I'll probably be a teacher. But yeah, that sort of reading and communication and so forth. Probably that's what I said back then. So I guess it's probably come full circle, and
doing what you were born to do.
Yeah, perhaps.
All right, cool. Well, this has been a great start, Caz. All right, well, we're going to take a break in a sec. When we come back from our first break, I think you might have an announcement you want to have a little chat about. So we might get into that. There's plenty more to talk about as well. But yeah, we'll get into the announcement. And so there'll be that and plenty more coming right up. Okay, and we're back from our first break. All right, Caz, I've had a Tim Tam, got another one ready to go. I think I'm going to need it next. So you've got a bit of an announcement you want to have a chat about with what's happening at Solar Training Centre.
Yes, we're really happy to announce shortly we'll be opening up applications for the AWISE Solar Training Centre Women in Solar Training Scholarship.
That's a mouthful.
Yes, it is. It's a big mouthful, but we've offered this scholarship previously a couple of years ago, and back again in concert with AWISE again to offer a scholarship. The scholarship is to the value of $2,600, and it's open to fourth-year apprentices, qualified electricians, and also electrical engineers, women who are looking to get their design and install grid PV course, or in the case of the electrical engineers, the design qualification, so that they can go on and apply to SAA and get their accreditation so that they can work as an accredited designer installer in the solar space.
That's big news. Good stuff. So back doing this with AWISE, which is really cool. They're doing a lot of really cool stuff in the industry.
Yes, yeah, we've worked together quite closely in the past and continuing on our relationship with them. So we'll be opening up the scholarship for applications. That will just be an application, just the proving the eligibility, whether that's with documentation as an apprenticeship or showing completion of Cert 3, electrotechnology or electrical engineering degree.
So do they need their Cert 3 to be able to apply?
No, they don't need their Cert 3 to be able to apply for the scholarship.
Yep.
They just need to have completed particular units in the Cert 3 that are the prerequisites to the solar PV units of study. And we can help people. They'll be listed, and we can help people. If they're already enrolled in them and are about to complete them, that's okay as well. So it pretty much means fourth years. Third years won't have done those prerequisites or commence those prerequisite units as yet.
Yep.
So we limit it to fourth years. And they don't have to have got their A grade license at the point of applying for the scholarship, as long as they've met those prerequisites.
Yep.
They can apply, or again if they're in A grade, and of course once they've successfully completed their course, then they can go on and apply for the SAA accreditation, as long as they've been issued their electrical license at that point. Obviously, from the point of view of the electrical engineers, they don't need to be showing electrical license as part of that accreditation pathway.
Good stuff. Well, you heard it here. No, I don't know. Did you hear it first?
Yes, I think we have actually. Yes, I think this is a scoop, Pat.
Oh, there we go. I'm going to start calling me Mr. Exclusive.
Exactly. So we will be. We'll be announcing that applications are open, and the winner will be announced at the AWISE Recharge Your Spark function at All Energy in October.
My favourite day of the year.
Yes, yep.
Love it.
We'll all be there, and we'll be able to announce the winner, and the winner will undertake their training within a 12-month period from that date.
Yep.
And we'll be able to do a presentation to the winner for with their certificate at the end of their study journey.
Good stuff.
It is open to all across Australia.
Yep.
And the training is offered in one of our locations, Adelaide, Brisbane, Melbourne. Mm-hmm. From time to time, we also do run live interactive webinar courses for those people who are regional, remote, or that just can't get away.
So people who aren't in those cities can still apply?
Yes, of course, of course. And they can choose to come to one of those cities and do the training, or with one of our webinar-based courses. We've got one coming up at the end of November.
Yep.
And they can study that way. With the practical training, though, for the install side of the course, they will need to attend one of the training centres, because all of our practical training is done on site with our trainers, with a wide array of equipment for them to learn on.
That's the best way to do it, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's all right. That just might mean a little holiday for them.
Yes, a little holiday.
Little holiday, come down to Melbourne or Adelaide.
Or up to Brisbane.
Up to Brisbane.
Yep.
Yeah. Nah, not in the summertime. Don't go to Brisbane in summer. It's too hot and
Well, I gather it's going to be 40 degrees in Queensland next week. So.
Yeah, I've been hearing this.
Yeah, we do have a course there next week, so I think they'll be experiencing something a little bit different from down here in Melbourne.
It's a little bit ridiculous. I feel like it's been warm in Melbourne like the last couple of weeks. 40 degrees, yeah. That's a bit much. All right, no, let's not talk about the weather too much. But okay, all right, very good. So that's for any women interested in that scholarship. Did you say how to apply? Yeah.
The applications will be available via our website.
Yep, via your website.
There'll be a big click on a button on the website. There'll be a explanation of the scholarship itself, and they'll be able to download an application form. And they'll just need to get that application form in by the due date. And AWISE and Solar Training Centre will have a look at all the applications, and there's a couple of questions to answer just about how they see their role in the industry, what their goals are. Yep. And the judging panel will select the winner, and we'll notify them, and then we'll announce the winner at the AWISE Recharge Your Spark.
Yeah, right. Is it? Did you say open now?
It's not open just yet.
No,
it'll be coming up in the next 2 weeks, I believe.
Yeah, so we're recording this on the second last day of winter, so it's the 30th of August 2024. So you reckon sort of early to mid September?
Mid-September, yep.
Mid-September 2024. All right, okay. So that'll be opening then. And I'll grab a link off you as well, Caz, when we're put in the show notes, and we can... When it does open, we'll make sure that goes in the show notes in case you are interested in applying, or you know someone. You can recommend people.
Employers can recommend people.
Yep.
Obviously, the person has to apply themselves, but
Yeah.
yes, but we'll be reaching out to wherever we can to advertise the the opportunity. But yes, certainly employers can recommend people as well, or anybody can put forward somebody, but they will need to fill out that application themselves.
Yep. Okay. And do they have to be at Recharge Your Spark to accept it, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily.
We prefer
no.
it, wouldn't we?
No. Well, with the announcement, it depends.
Yeah.
With the announcement, we'll sort that out with the the applicant. There'll at least be a photo if they can't attend.
Okay. I'll tell you what though, you got to watch if you get pulled up on stage at that event. You got to watch. You got to watch what's going to happen to you. So you might be, Hopefully you've been practicing your karaoke. That's all I've got to say. If you get pulled up at that event, you were there, weren't you, at that event last year? Were you there when I got pulled up to sing?
I can't remember.
Oh, you'd remember.
I probably wasn't
you might have been. Might have ducked
I wasn't
out.
the event, but I may have ducked out.
You might have ducked out.
Sounds like it was a good thing. I timed it well.
Yeah. Oh well. No, it was fun. It was lots of fun. It's a great day. I love that day. I've been to the last two since we sort of came out of COVID, being attending that event, and I just feel it really sets the tone well for All Energy Conference. Being able to spend some. It's not just it's not just quality time with your peers in the industry and just all the other people you want to network with, but you're actually learning things with them too, and I feel like you're bringing out the best of each other, and I just feel like it sets the tone really well for a couple of days ready to conference.
And I think the good thing about AWISE as a group, we're not talking about inverters and panels and batteries and STCs and platforms and the CER, etc. We're talking about solar as an industry and connecting and uplifting everybody in the room, whether they're female or male or however they identify.
Yep.
And there's a lot of support out there for people who are trying to make their way in an industry which is traditionally a male industry.
Yeah.
And I think it really does challenge some of that unconscious bias that people do have, because even things, just as language that people use, don't realise to the female ear how that sounds to them, or little things that are done in workplaces, how that actually affects females. The fact is there are not going to be enough male electricians to install all of the electrical infrastructure and solar and renewables in that Australia needs. We need to get women into more and more into the field.
Yep.
And organisation like AWISE is really at the forefront of supporting that and growing the industry.
Look, from where I'm sitting, right, I don't see that as the reason for us to do all this, right? For me, it's just a respect thing. I think we should all just treat each other with respect and try, if you do have a unconscious bias about the way you speak or the way you act or the way you have your body language is, I think it's something that you should look to try and address, right? A good product of this is that you're going to get more women coming into the industry, being electricians, or even if it brings more women in doing the traditional female roles in the industry, like admin and those sort of things. Even if it brings more of them in, I think that's a good thing too. But for me, it's just a respect thing. I think people should just respect each other, and that's what I feel like. That's what AWISE is just about.
Well, yesterday at our training centre here at Springvale in Melbourne, we had. We were running an off-grid course.
Yep.
We were running a battery course. We had a woman in each of those courses.
Yep.
We were also running our Work Safely in the Solar Industry safety course. That's the mandatory requirement for working in the Solar Homes program. And there are two women in that course. That is run for plumbers as well as electricians and apprentices. And there were two plumbing apprentices. Ladies, and they were doing the course. So we had 4 women in the training centre at one time, which was fantastic.
4. That's
4.
That's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. How are the males sort of, generally speaking, I won't say how accepting are they of that, because that's not really the right word, but how accommodating are they? And I suppose, where's their unconscious bias sit from what you've observed? Is it been pretty good, or is there a lot to learn?
In the classroom, we don't really tend to see it so much, because every student in the classroom, I think, is there on an equal basis.
Yeah.
There's no hierarchy in that sense. So we're not seeing people, a student sideline another student, like say in a practical training scenario where everybody's there. Everybody jumps in, everybody picks up the tools, everybody understands, what the process is and what they're doing. So we don't tend to see it, I think, as, in the classroom too much. Of course, there are classes where there are no women students, there. We have female presenters come through. We have a big industry engagement program that we run where we invite industry stakeholders, so suppliers, manufacturers. We have people coming in and presenting on their product or on a topic or et cetera that are out there in industry, so that students can actually make a connection with a supplier or a manufacturer, a wholesaler, or somebody else with knowledge in the industry. And we have female presenters that come through, and that's all very well. People show their respect, which is good. So
I've certainly noticed that when I've been to Solar Training Centre, and it's very inclusive environment, which is good. We're just not there yet where there's a huge mix of females coming through. I think that's everywhere, because there's a lot of work still to be done in that space. But every time there has been females around, I think it's been quite an inclusive environment, and your trainers are quite inclusive as well. And I think they go about their tasks and their day-to-day stuff really, really well and really respectful, which is cool. All right, cool. Well, do you want to talk about, do you want to have a little chat about this sustainability in solar, the PV reuse and recycling?
Absolutely.
You want to have a chat? You ready to have a chat about that?
Yes, certainly.
New qualifications and that sort of stuff?
Yes. Solar Training Centre is working with Lotus Energy Recycling for the development of a nationally accredited course. The working title of that course, soon to be accredited, is Decommissioning Solar PV for Safe Reuse and Recycling. And this is project is being undertaken through funding via the Victorian Government's Circular Economy Business Intervention Centre. Okay. So
I can see why you need your notes for that. That's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful. I do agree. So the Circular Economy Business Innovation
What's that?
Innovation Centre.
Is that part of
that's part of Sustainability Victoria.
Sorry, not DELP. Sustainability Victoria.
Yeah, Sustainability Victoria. So they have a whole program about encouraging circular economy. Grants. I think this is round 3 of the grants. And you go to their website and see those past grant recipients. So we've been working on that project since November last year, developing a qualification, and that qualification really centres around understanding circular economy as it applies to renewables, and in particular solar PV, because I'm not sure if people are aware that solar PV is actually classed, once it comes off a roof, is classed as solar e-waste. So, and there are laws around e-waste.
I think that might have changed. Maybe I'm guessing 3 or 4 years ago, where it became classed as e-waste.
Yeah, and just talking about the Victorian government. Because
sure.
We're in Victoria. Victorians. Government banned e-waste going to landfill in 2019.
Yes.
And so the definition of e-waste is anything with a plug. And electrical wiring. There is an accurate definition in the standard.
I think it
includes, in the law.
Includes a toaster, doesn't it?
Yeah, anything.
It does, doesn't it?
Anything that has a plug. So there's a ban to landfill. So if you're not putting it in landfill, you've got to figure out what you're going to do with it. Of course, the other there are a lot of issues surrounding solar PV and what to do with them. But by 2040, it's estimated that 300,000 to 450,000 tonnes of PV waste will have been generated in Australia. So that's a lot of waste. And one of the issues, of course, is those original feed-in tariffs, the contracts that early adopters are on, come up in 2026, 2027. When people putting in 1.5 kilowatts to 2 kilowatts on the roof, and have been not all, but a lot have been retaining systems until that feed-in tariff runs out. We have a 3 point, think it's 3.7, I think, on our roof. And I went in 2012, and
3.7. That almost sounds funny now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But hey,
yeah, I know.
Haven't had an electrical bill since.
Yeah, there you go.
But just waiting for that feed-in tariff to come, and we'll be in the situation of obviously updating that system. And there are thousands of installations coming up in that same scenario. The pace of technology growth in the industry is just amazing, and so of course once people start to do something that they want to do on a roof, then those challenges of new technology trying to blend it with old, obviously when old technology comes off and you want to put new technology in, so that's a big driver.
And that's right. Yeah, it's actually hard to do as far even with the standards, trying to make an old system and trying to tie it in with the new system. It can be very difficult. Even upgrading an old system is almost impossible. And even trying to integrate an old one with the new one, it's hard to do by the standards, and then to get all your labeling right and all that sort of stuff. I can see why a lot of people are just ripping them off. I mean, I don't agree that it's always the best thing to do, but it's a lot easier a lot of the time. So that presents a challenge to the industry. How do we deal with all this sort of stuff?
Yes.
So I think that's part of why this course has sort of come up.
Yeah. So we've been looking at what kind of skills and knowledge do not only installers but retailers, recyclers, trades assistants that may be working on a roof, apprentices and so forth, people, transporters of product. What do they need to understand first about circular economy, solar PV as e-waste, and what the legislation and regulations are about handling it, and what can they do with it. Obviously, some solar PV that comes off is useful, but some isn't. And the techniques used to remove solar PV from roofs can determine whether something can be reused or not. Because of course, if you're doing things to the panels, and I'm just talking panels here, we're only covering panels in this particular course. Obviously, there's inverters and batteries and balance of system and so forth, but we're just concentrating on PV here. But being careful in taking them off so that they are can be preserved for potential reuse is really important. So not throwing them down from the roof, not smashing them up, being careful about
not getting end clamps off with a hammer.
Yeah, exactly, and creating more micro cracks and so forth, and trying to preserve those ones that can be reused for other applications is important, and also packaging them up for transport wherever they're being transported off, making sure that
there's a lot to it. When you start mentioning all these things, and then you look at all the stuff that's involved in the end of life of end of this life anyway. May not be the end of the life of that solar panel. It may end up having a second life, maybe. But there's a lot to it. You've got to make sure it's done safely. You've got to make sure you don't damage stuff. You've got to make sure everyone's okay. Yeah.
And the other thing too, just in line with that, the latest notice to market by Solar Victoria, again, just talking about Victoria here, is that retailer has a mandatory obligation to remove solar PV from the customer's site unless they're expressly requested not to do so by the customer. So it's actually mandatory to remove those. Again, here I'll just talk about solar PV, although it is mandatory for the whole of system. And given that solar PV is banned from e-waste in Vic and in other places as well, and it needs to be taken to a lawful place. So there are those rules and regulations. And I think once you understand what those processes are and why, then it makes it easier to understand why I need to take, what I need to do with panels and what the opportunities are. The thing about reuse of solar PV is there is no national standard for certification, or let's say recertification of that panel.
There's no IEC standard or anything like that.
No, there's no testing certified testing procedure. And because we can ship them off to Nigeria or Timor Leste or wherever we might like to ship them, but what are we shipping?
Yeah,
we're shipping e-waste.
Yeah, you're just making it another country's problem.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not helping things. It's
And,
not helping the earth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you know, I've had people argue, well, okay, well, the poor person in Timor-Leste needs electricity, so does it really matter? We're giving them that, but those countries don't have processes in place to deal themselves with e-waste.
Yeah.
So we're just, you know, we could be. In many cases, just transferring our waste problem into third world countries. Now, if those panels are certified as with having that first of all safe, and second of all have a valuable output still, then we can safely pass those on for reuse in scenarios that they can be reused in.
Yeah.
So part of this project is also investigating. Testing protocols. That part of the project's been done by Lotus Energy Recycling and Victoria Uni, where we're testing panels and confirming the decision making on pass or fail. You know, based on electrical tests and visual tests, thermography tests, and so forth.
Are they aspiring to have a standard?
Well, it's very difficult for an individual company or any individual entity to have a standard. However, nationally, there's a piece of work going on in this area as well. In Queensland, there's been
you don't have another scoop for us here.
Another scoop? No, it's not my scoop, but I will pass it on. Just this, I think it was late last week, the Queensland PV recycling pilot, which is a part of the product stewardship program, commenced, and I believe it's I'm going to say Toowoomba, but in Queensland. And for information on that, go to the Smart Energy Council website. I was going to say,
this is the Smart Energy Council thing, isn't it? I have heard of this.
Yes, yeah. Yep. So Smart Energy Council, Queensland Government, and a lot of other partners have been involved in developing what is the commencement of a product stewardship program for management of end of life. You know, product stewardship programs can be. There is actually a website that the Product Stewardship Centre of Excellence. Have a look at their website. It goes through a lot of stuff about product stewardship. You know, you can have governments that set up a product stewardship and it's basically enforced on industry, or you can have industry-based product stewardship that rises out of industry. You've got like the packaging covenant. That's one steward for packaging, and that retailers are responsible for undertaking back their packaging and dealing with it with appropriately. You've got the battery, battery. I'm not talking solar batteries here, but general batteries. That program, and solar there is no national product stewardship scheme as yet, but industry in this work is moving towards that. So Queensland's government and Smart Energy Council have been working, and a panel of operators have been working on that, I think, for the last at least year, possibly 18 months. And also, just this week, the draft report on solar PV reuse in Australia was released as well. I'll give you that link to put in the show notes as well. That's the solar PV reuse desktop study. The draft report was released just this week, undertaken by Dr. Matthew Parnell. And again, Smart Energy Council website will have some links to there on this product stewardship page. I haven't had a deep dive on the draft report yet, but there's lots of it. It really covers. Just looking at it briefly, when it came out, it really does cover the technical issues about reuse, because obviously we're trying to reuse things before we recycle. Because it's much more environmentally manageable to reuse things. Once you restart recycling solar PV, you've got energy goes into that, and you need markets for those recycled elements
materials
or
whatever
that come out of that recycling. And the other issue as well is actually the depletion of minerals over time that are going into solar panels. If we're going to be using all the available minerals that are required in solar PV, you'll be depleting minerals for that one purpose. So managing that whole a whole
There's
flow.
a lot to it.
It's a really complex. Complex when you start looking into it, you think, I didn't realise that. Didn't realise that about things. So it's a really complex topic. But obviously Australia's starting to try and and tackle it.
Yeah.
And the qualification that we've developed. Will continue to change. We're developing it now, but the content, the material, the learning materials, the legislation will keep changing. But it's a good way of getting out in a formalised structure to the market what they might need to understand and do when it comes to recycling solar PV and reusing.
Yeah, I think it's really good. This work that's happening in this space. It's only a matter of time as well until solar farms come offline as well. That's going to be, I don't know if any have come offline yet. I don't know, but I'm sure within the next 10 years or so, I'm sure you'll see a few come off. And yeah, this is a problem we are going to have to face from the industry. Like we are facing it now. And I think a lot of stuff's going into it. But yeah, if we don't tackle this properly, it would be a disaster.
And that's one of the challenges Australia has, because remote and rural scenarios, where do you put a recycling plant in Australia?
I have heard these discussions taken around. Like, do you just have them in the major city centres? Yeah. Do you have them near the solar farms? There's a lot.
And you've got transport costs.
Yeah, transport costs.
All of those things. So, and obviously, if you're in Victoria, you can take them to Lotus Energy Recycling.
Yep.
They can deal with them there. I think they are the only recycling facility that has certification to deal with solar panels. There are other locations in other states that are accepting them, although where they're at in the journey of dealing with solar PV is another thing. You've got to think about, particularly if they're recycling, what is being recycled.
Yeah, they're not just chopping the leads off.
Is everything being recycled? Is it just ripping the aluminium out? All those kind of things. And if you want to do your due diligence, you can look into those things. If you're mindful about where you're taking your solar panels and what's happening to them, then you can do your due diligence on that.
Very good. It's a really interesting space, I think. Sounds really good. Well, so that's going to be a qualification, is that right?
Qualification, yes. It'll be a nationally accredited qualification.
Yeah, nationally accredited.
We're doing pilot delivery of that at the moment. We've had one group go through. We've got another group going through next week, and there'll be another group in September. And that pilot just helps us look at the curriculum that we've developed and the learning materials and adjust what we need to adjust, and perhaps change things around, make a little bit more emphasis on a particular topic based on feedback from students. And we'll be looking to finalise the qualification in the actual qualification documents and get them in to be accredited. But it'll be accredited by VRQA, the Victorian accreditation body, but it'll be listed for national training on training.gov, which is the National Register of accredited training products.
So it means other RTOs around the country can pick it up?
Because it's what they call an accredited course, it's privately owned, so they just need to negotiate with us on being able to do that.
Sure.
Yeah, but it'll be listed, and then it can actually be offered as a qualification, which means certificate a statement of attainment is issued. It's known as an actual qualification, as opposed to being an information course or etc.
All this RTO spec, geez, it's so confusing. I've been exposed to a little bit. You're in it every day. It's probably like nothing to you.
Yeah, it's all the terminology.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, Caz, we're going to go to our second break. When we come back, we're going to be wrapping up and going through a couple of things that are happening in the industry. So, we'll be right back in just a few moments. Okay, and we're back from our second break. This section will be, wrapping the show up and our closing remarks. So it's been good so far, Caz. What do you reckon? How do you reckon Steve's going to give you a score out of how you went today?
He'll be upset if I've done better than him. So I don't know. I'm sure he'll give me out of 10 out of 10, and we'll just see how many people listen to mine, and we'll just compare when we get home.
Well, we actually weren't. I'm not sure if we'll be able to compare the numbers too well because we weren't doing the distribution. when we're doing Steve. So I don't really have the accurate figures on the numbers.
Okay.
And then
we won't tell him that.
I think we've got his one on YouTube now, but since we've had it on there, hasn't had that many views. So, but anyway, so maybe you've got a bit of an advantage there. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. He left us with some bit of exotic language. You're not going to do that, are you?
No. No, I just speak Macedonian.
Yeah, he did. He finished off with some Macedonian. Yeah. So,
well, I can speak German, but I won't put the listeners through that.
Fair enough. Oh, all right. So what's up for the rest of the day then, Caz? You're going to head back?
Heading back to the training centre at Springvale, wrapping up our standalone course and our battery course there.
Yeah.
Make sure everybody's, all the students are straightforward on what they need to do from here.
So barbecue today?
Barbecue lunch,
barbecue.
Yes. We'll make it back for the barbecue lunch. Yeah. We do put a barbecue lunch on usually Thursdays and Fridays for our students. So we
not bad too. I've been to a few of those. They're all right.
So have a nice roll with a bit of meat.
Yeah.
And so we'll do that, and then obviously pack up the training centre, and then we'll head off tomorrow. Steve will be off tomorrow to Brisbane. We've got a battery course up in Brisbane there at Salisbury at the Construction Training Centre. He'll be heading there, and I'll be heading back to Adelaide. We've got a grid PV course at our new training centre in Adelaide. We moved. We'd been at Torrensville for a number of years there, but completely outgrew that location. So we've just since November last year. Building a new training centre in Adelaide, and
how's that going? How's the new centre going?
It's fantastic. Yeah. It's a huge warehouse area with we have dedicated training walls, as we call them, with the inverters and product for. We've got an off-grid wall, a grid PV wall, and a battery wall.
Yep.
We can interchange them, but a really big variety of product there, and just built a second classroom in there as well. So we'll be able to run two classes at the same time, which is always really helpful.
Yeah.
And it's almost coming together. It's been a big journey, a big effort. We'd been in the other place, I think, for about 13 years. So you find all the stuff you've accumulated, and you think, why have I kept that?
Any surprises? Anything you want to share that you found? You've looked back and gone?
I did find, because we'd also moved houses a couple of times, I did find all of my uni notes from Physio World. And I thought, I don't think I need those, those back from second year physio anymore. Just original documents when we first applied to be an RTO and all that kind of stuff. And you look back and mountains of paper, and you think, look at all that work, all those mountains of paper. Because of course we started back in the day where everything wasn't necessarily digitised.
Yeah.
We did have to produce hard copy documents for a lot of the auditing and things that we did. So there was a lot there, but we've kind of almost got it on top of it. Now. So
yeah, very good.
Yep.
So what would you say to people who are thinking about, they've got some workers and they are thinking about putting them through an accreditation course?
Yeah.
What do you think? Why should they come to Solar Training Centre?
Well, Solar Training Centre, first of all, we do take a very personalised approach to enrolment. So we make sure that students and employers fully understand the course requirements and what they need to do to complete, and then go on course, get their accreditation. We have funding available for courses in South Australia through CITB and in Queensland through CSQ. We've also had some funding here in Victoria through Solar Victoria Upskilling Electricians Program. Those two courses we ran out of Ballarat this time, and those have all been exhausted now. We also have got our regional program, again funded through Solar Victoria, for the Work Safely in Solar Safety Unit of Study. The unit code's just been updated, but basically it's Work Safely in Solar, which is that additional unit of study that anyone working on a rooftop on a job that is for which Solar Homes program rebates are being applied, all install workers need to undertake that unit of study. And so we're we've rolled out that study out to the regions since July last year.
Yep.
Coming up for our last set of dates, we have Bendigo on the 17th of September, Shepparton on the 18th, Wodonga on the 19th, and then Ballarat and Geelong the week after.
That's a fair spread. That's capturing most of country Victoria.
It does,
there.
yeah. It's a big 2 weeks. We actually take out roof mock-ups and actual heights equipment and so forth, and we set that up and train, and that is free to those regional Victorians.
Cool.
So certainly, if anybody needs to put their workers through that,
are they full yet? Or they got
no. There's positions
still
available.
Positions?
Yep, positions available. So that funded program will come to an end at the end of December. So if you do need to get your any team members in, certainly touch base with us
for sure
for that. And then really in terms of why choose Solar Training Centre for your training? We do take the training very seriously. It's very comprehensive, and we do offer one of the few training centres to offer face-to-face training. We run it as an intensive week with supported fully by online course materials. Assessments are submitted online, but we have highly experienced trainers offering delivering the qualifications over our training week. We provide full support to students with backup from the office and from the trainers. Full range of free resources that come with those training courses, and we see people through to getting their SAA qualification if that's their goal. We don't like people dropping out because they've just had enough of it or like just couldn't understand. We offer a free return to students back into class if they want to come. If they've gone through the Grid PV class, for example, and they want to install a Fronius, and we've got a Fronius, which we do, on the wall, and they want to have a bit of a go and come back in during our install prac training day, as long as there's positions, spot available.
Yep.
Come back in and do that again. They can come back in and sit in class if they wanted to run through a design project again. If they didn't quite grasp something during the week, they can certainly.
I didn't know you guys did that. That's such a simple thing to do. That's really beneficial for the students. Yeah,
because we know people will go through the course and then get to a point, how do I remember to do that? They've got their notes, but they may just want to go in and have a little bit more extra tuition, so we can certainly do that. We try and make sure that people just don't drop off the list because they've lost confidence.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some rules, about how long you can drag out, some study. But as long as the students are engaged and want to learn, we'll be there supporting them and getting them through.
That's good. Lovely to hear all that. I can see that your whole team really takes it seriously, the training side of things. You want quality training. You're not trying to just push them through. You really, obviously, you want them to pass, but you also want them to learn and come out of it with something.
Yeah, and we really want them to understand the industry.
Yeah,
it's not just doing the units of study that are required. It's also understanding where the industry's at, how it works, what to think about. Even just business management concepts that you might need to think about. We get a lot of people coming through. It's their first try into the field, and they. Not that we can necessarily tell them everything about it, but we can point them in the right direction. So we do try and have those industry players, industry stakeholders come in and talk about product, or talk about how do wholesalers work.
Yeah.
What's distribution, about, or particular products. Obviously, getting more information about those. We're running CPD training courses, hosting those.
Yep. You just had one with Enphase, is that right? Yeah, I saw that.
Sig Energy as well in Adelaide.
That's right.
Yeah,
I saw that.
We'll be having a couple more coming up with those, and through Energy Spurt, who are here in Dandenong in Victoria, and they're in Queensland and Adelaide as well, and really trying to connect those organisations, into our training centre, because we have those really fantastic practical training facilities. It does really lend itself well to not just the accredited training, but CPD training as well. We're trying to demonstrate and practice, install a particular product as well. So
yeah, for sure. No, it's a great facility you've got there. I can only speak for the one in Springvale. Been there a few times, speaking to your students and doing other things there, and it's a great facility. Yeah. Really, really, really well looked after and well set up, which is nice. And I enjoy always, coming and speaking to your students when I come in and have a chat to the have a chat to them about what's happening in the inspection world.
Yep.
And that's always, there's always a few in there that are always wanting to pick my brain at the end.
Yeah, and that's what makes it really authentic. It's not just book learning, it's actually learning skills and knowledge that are actually industry relevant and connections with industry.
Yeah, for sure. They're really, really important stuff. They're the foundations you need to run a successful business. And I mean, you know, if you want to be in here and actually make a fist of it and make money, they're the sort of things you need to be able to sustain. So that's really valuable and helpful. All right, good stuff. All right, Caz. Well, thank you very much for coming in. I'm really interested in that, like your journey and how you got to where you are. It's really cool. It's obviously a lot of experience in so many different fields. Do you enjoy the solar industry? Not just the training, but do you enjoy the solar industry as much as you did with the health sort of side of things, or is it?
Yeah, there's a couple parallels. You know, there's just thinking about physios.
Yeah,
there's a lot of small physio practices that are started off by one person or two people, and they grow, and they face challenges, and with large organisations that come and set up, you know, and are in competition. I'm always really impressed in the solar industry with the amount of peer support that's offered, you know, for example, like Solar Cutters and AWISE and other groups, and not even just formalised groups, just in general, about how people are willing to help. And
even competitors.
Even competitors.
Competitors are really happy to help each other. Yeah,
and we're sort of upskilling the whole industry and helping people out with a question or with some knowledge or some direction or support. You know, there's a lot of challenges out there at the moment with business and trying to run a business and keep your head above water, and you know, it can be a real roller coaster. So, you know, just having that, just being able to reach out to people who are going through the same thing. There's parallels, you know, with that. So so it's a different industry than health, but there are a lot of similarities, and I think that's what makes people resilient, is being able to take whatever skills you've learned in another field or walk of life or activity in life, and being able to apply that to the scenario that you're in a different field. Helps you get ahead.
Certainly seems to be what you've done anyway. So it's really, really intrigued by your journey and where you've come and what you've done, and it's I like those parallels you've drawn as well between the two industries. So that's really cool. All right. Well, I think I'm going to start to wrap things up now. I just wanted to mention, I do have approval for another podcast coming up, which will be with ESV again. So we just released this week episode 21, which took a little bit longer, not as long as I thought it might have, but that was with Scott Beasley, and we spoke about a lot of stuff with legislation and inspector obligations and a lot of technical things with batteries. Great episode. So that's now live. If anyone wants to watch or listen to that, feel free to do so. But there'll be another one coming up. It'll be, at this stage, we think it's probably going to be episode 26. It's going to be with Sandy Adkins from Energy Safe Victoria. Looking forward to that one. I think that's probably, I'm hoping to have CPD points available for that one as well with a quiz, we think. So keep your eyes peeled. Yeah, keep your ears open, eyes peeled, whatever, for that one. So that should be good. Now we're going to be talking about the changes to the new document, the AS 4777.1, the 2024 version. So there's a lot of changes in there, which, you know, got a lot to do with, you know, residential voltages, grid protection devices. There's a whole heap of stuff in there. Sandy's the expert. He's on the EL42 committee, standards committee. So I'm looking forward to that. He's also my ex-boss. He was my first boss at Clean Energy Council. So he was the one who interviewed me before I started working there, so that'll be a nice little reunion as well.
Tables are turning, Pat. You're interviewing him.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I am actually. Yeah. Well, and you know, it's probably going to be another pretty serious episode, like it was with Scott. But yeah, there might be a couple of funny stories we can sort of tell as well in that one too. So I'm looking forward to that. I also want to remind listeners, if you're liking the content, like us on Facebook, the Solar Sidekicks Facebook page. And on YouTube, if you're interested in watching YouTube, if you subscribe, it does really help us. So please subscribe on YouTube. We don't have many subscribers at the moment. Maybe I need to push it a little bit harder. I'm not really sure how to do that, but I'm sure I'm sure Joe can sort of work it out. Actually, one more thing, Caz, I want to ask you. I just mentioned Joe. You work with your spouse, right? And now I think I'm qualified to ask this question. How do you think? What's the dynamic? How do you think you go with all that?
Oh, do we have another hour for the podcast, Pat? Look, I'm sure anybody who works with their spouse would say that it's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to keep a line between what's business and what's
you sort of
personal,
can't,
but you can't.
No,
you definitely can't. And
it's got to manage it, I reckon.
Yeah, you do, and it's we're probably lucky in that because we do travel around the country and we're in different locations. Sometimes it's probably possibly helpful.
Yeah.
It is difficult to switch off at night and not talk about work, and particularly when running a business. Not so much about work, but running a business is difficult to switch off. But I guess we've made it this far, so it must be working.
Yeah. No, it seems to be. You both seem to like really care about the industry. You're both really lovely, passionate people.
Thanks, Pat.
Yeah, no, it's genuine. Like I can really see it. So, yeah, I can imagine what your dinner table conversations would be like sometimes, though. It'd be quite interesting. Oh, it's probably similar to what Joe and I have. But yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that because a lot of people don't work with their spouse and may want an insight into it, but the ones who do work with their spouse probably know it all before, and they probably don't want to hear about it because they're sick of those sort of conversations. But anyway. All right. Any closing remarks you have, Caz?
No, I'd just like to thank you, Pat, for having me on. It's been great having a chat and seeing how the podcast works. And you're a skilled interviewer, which makes it very easy. So I can recommend if you're thinking about coming on Pat's podcast, do, because it's not as daunting as you might think before you get here. Yeah.
Oh, that's good to hear. Like I'm trying to make it a comfortable environment for everyone, and make it interesting and get interesting guests. I think I've been doing that so far. So
yep, definitely.
You've lived up to that, I think, Caz. So
thank you
very much for coming on. Appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to jump on. And really appreciate having the chat. And you and Steve and your team are doing some great things. So keep it up. And we love what you're doing for the industry.
Great. Thanks a lot, Pat.
No worries. All right, everyone. Well, that brings the episode to a close. Next week will be episode 24. And we'll be back then on the next episode of Solar Sidekicks. Thank you very much, everyone.